Imagine a casino where the rules change depending on how many chips you have. A player with $1,000,000 bets $10. You, with the last 100 in your pocket, are required to bet 15 for the exact same hand. If he wins, they pour him champagne. If you win, they charge you a commission just for renting the seat. Sound like a scam? Absolutely, but this is exactly what your economic reality looks like every single day. My name is Mike. I've spent years inside investment banks watching how big money works. In previous videos, I've mentioned that a poor person pays more for life than a wealthy one. Today, I want to break down this absurdity in detail and shine a light on something interesting. Forget the advice about drinking less coffee or saving 10%. That is a lie designed to distract you from the main fact. Being broke is expensive, insanely expensive. There is a hidden tax on poverty, a mathematical algorithm that forces low-income people to pay double or even triple what the rich pay for the exact same life. We are going to take this trap apart, bolt by bolt. We'll see how banks fine you for having no money, how supermarkets manipulate prices, and how cheap things steal your future. This isn't moralizing. This is naked math. And to understand the first formula of this equation, we don't need to look at stock market tickers. We just need to look down at what is on your feet. Because sometimes a pair of old boots can explain the global economy better than any Harvard professor. In economic theory, there are many complex graphs and indices, but nothing describes the poverty trap better than the thoughts of city watch captain Samuel Vimes from the novels of Terry Pratchett. It's called the Sam Vimes Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. It sounds funny, but let's do the math. Imagine two people. Let's call them John and Alex. Alex is wealthy. John is barely making ends meet. Both need boots to walk to work. Alex goes to the store and sees excellent leather boots. They cost $50. For Alex, this is no problem. He pays $50, and these boots serve him faithfully for 10 years. They don't leak. The soles don't fall off. 10 years of dryness and comfort. John looks at those boots too. He knows they are good, but John doesn't have $50. He only has 10 in his pocket, and he can't walk barefoot while he saves up. So he buys cheap boots made of bad leatherette and cardboard for $10. A season later, these boots fall apart. The soles crack, his feet get wet. John throws them away and spends another $10 on the same bad boots. Now, let's fast forward 10 years. Alex is still wearing his $50 boots. Maybe he replaced the heels once, but overall, his expense was those same $50. And what about John? In 10 years, he has bought 10 pairs of cheap shoes. He has spent $100. Think about that. John, who has no money, spent twice as much on shoes as wealthy Alex. But the scariest part isn't even the money. The scariest part is that for all those 10 years, John's feet were wet. He paid more for a worse quality of life. In the world of finance, where I work, this has a name. We divide expenses into CapEx, capital expenditure, and OpEx, operational expenditure. Wealth is the ability to make a high CapEx today to lower your OpEx tomorrow. It's buying solar panels so you don't pay for electricity. It's buying a quality tool that will last a lifetime. Poverty is the trap of high OpEx. You cannot afford the entry ticket to the world of quality things. You get stuck in a cycle of constantly replacing cheap garbage. This doesn't just apply to shoes. It's the cheap mattress that gives you back pain, forcing you to spend money on painkillers. It's the cheap laptop that lags and breaks at the most critical moment, costing you a job opportunity. It's the cheap clothes that lose their shape after the third wash. The system punishes you for the inability to pay a lot and all at once. It breaks your spending into small pieces, but the sum of those pieces forms a mountain higher than a millionaire's. You pay the poverty tax every time you choose the cheapest option on the shelf, not because you want to, but because you have no choice. But if the situation with the boots seems unfair to you, just wait. You buy boots once a year. There is something you buy every day. And it is there, in the aisles of a regular supermarket, that the most massive robbery of your budget takes place. You think you're saving money by buying small packages? Let's look at the price tags a little closer. Let's walk over to the household chemicals aisle. Here, among shelves of detergent and paper towels, a quiet catastrophe is happening that economists call the liquidity problem. But I call it the toilet paper paradox. Look at the prices. Here's a pack of 4 rolls. It costs $3, seemingly inexpensive, an affordable amount, and right next to it is a huge wholesale package of 48 rolls. It costs $20. The math here is obscenely simple. In the small pack, 1 roll costs you 75 cents. In the big one, only 40 cents, almost twice as cheap. A rich person or someone from the middle class doesn't even think about it. He grabs the big pack, throws it in the trunk of his SUV, drives home, and forgets about buying toilet paper for 6 months. He just received a guaranteed return on investment of almost 100%. No bank will give you the interest rate that a bulk purchase of toilet paper gives you. But what does the person living paycheck to paycheck do? He only has $30 in his wallet for food and household needs until the end of the week. He sees perfectly well that the big package is a better deal. He knows how to count. He isn't stupid. But he cannot spend $20 out of 30 on paper. He needs to buy milk, bread, eggs. He has no free capital to invest in a wholesale purchase, so he takes the small pack for $3. And this happens every week. Over a year, a poor person spends 1.5 to 2 times more money on toilet paper, rice, pasta, and butter than a rich person, simply because he is forced to buy small portions. This is a tax on the lack of working capital. This applies to everything. A 10-kilogram bag of rice costs pennies per serving. But you can't buy it if you don't have $15 upfront and space in the cupboard to store it. You buy a small bag for $2 that has 5 times less rice. Here, a concept comes into play that the news stays silent about: personal inflation. When the TV says inflation is 5%, they are calculating an average basket. But the prices of small packages and cheap products rise faster than the prices of premium wholesale goods. Manufacturers know you aren't going anywhere. You can't stop buying food. So they shrink the package weight while keeping the price the same, or they raise prices on the most essential cheap items. Your personal inflation rate could be 15–20%, while your rich neighbor only feels 3%. You are running on an escalator that's going down, and every year it speeds up. You overpay hundreds of dollars a year just for packaging. That money could have gone to paying off debt or savings, but it dissolves into thin air at the supermarket checkout. And if overpaying for rice and paper is just slowly sucking the blood out of you, the next trap operates differently. It waits, lurking like a predator. It strikes rarely, but when it strikes, it breaks your back. Because you overpay for food since you don't have an extra $20. But what happens when the mechanism your entire life depends on breaks down? If the supermarket is death by 1,000 cuts, the next category of expenses is a gunshot to the knee. Welcome to the world of cheap things that cost a fortune. Let's talk about cars. For a wealthy person, a car is just a means of transportation. He buys a new car with a warranty. If it breaks down, which happens rarely, the dealer gives him a loaner car while his is fixed for free. His life doesn't stop for a minute. Now let's look at the life of a person on a tight budget. You can't afford a new Toyota. You buy what you can afford, an old sedan with 200,000 miles on it for a couple of grand. You think you saved money. But actually, you just signed a contract with the devil. In business, there's a concept called TCO, total cost of ownership. Poor people look at the purchase price. Rich people look at the TCO. Your cheap car is a time bomb, and it explodes at the most inconvenient moment. Usually on the way to a job interview or when you need to take your child to the doctor. The check engine light comes on. That little orange icon on the dashboard is capable of triggering a panic attack faster than the barrel of a gun. You go to the shop. The mechanic says, "Need to replace the transmission. That'll be $800. You don't have $800. You delay the repair. The car dies completely. And here, the real nightmare begins. It's not just the car broke. No car means you are late for work. Late 3 times, you get fined or fired, lose income, can't fix the car. The circle closes. This is called a cascading system failure. One small part for $50 destroys your entire financial life. You pay a reliability tax. You pay with your time, nerves, and money for the fact that your equipment is unreliable. This doesn't just apply to cars. Take a washing machine. You don't have $500 for a new one, so you go to the laundromat. You spend $5 per wash every week, plus 2 hours of your time sitting on a plastic chair under the hum of centrifuges. In 5 years, you will give the laundromat $1,300. You could have bought 2.5 new washing machines for that money, but you couldn't buy one back then. So you pay an installment plan that lasts a lifetime and with interest in the form of lost time. Time is the only asset you could convert into money by working or learning. But cheap things steal your time. You fix the old, you wait for the bus, you sit in laundromats. The system keeps you in a state of constantly putting out fires. You cannot build a strategy 5 years in advance when you don't know if your car will start tomorrow morning. The car pulls you to the bottom like an anchor. But there is an asset that, in theory, should be your fortress, your shelter. But for millions of people, it has become the deepest financial pit. You pay a stranger money that you could use to buy your own home, but the bank says you aren't rich enough to pay less. Let's talk about the roof over your head. It is a basic need. You cannot live on the street. And it is here, in the housing market, that the math of poverty performs its most cynical backflip. Here is a situation familiar to millions. You rent an apartment, you pay, say, $1,500 a month for it. You pay faithfully, year after year. You have never missed a payment. You are the ideal payer. In 5 years, you have given the landlord $90,000. That money just vanished. You burned it to keep warm. At that very moment, your landlord, the guy you transfer money to, pays the bank a mortgage for that exact same apartment. And do you know how much his payment is? Most likely around $1,000 or even $900. Now watch the hands. You go to the bank. You bring bank statements. You show them, look, I've been paying $1,500 a month for 5 years without a single late payment. Give me a mortgage with a payment of $1,000. That's 30% less. I can definitely afford it. And the bank looks at you, adjusts its tie, and says, sorry, but we believe you cannot afford a payment of $1,000. It is too risky. Do you hear the absurdity? You proved with actions that you can pay $1,500, but the bank denies you a payment of $1,000. Why? Because you don't have a down payment. You don't have those Vimes boots in the form of a pile of cash, $20,000 or $30,000, to enter the game. And while you pay high rent, you cannot save that money. It is the perfect trap, a closed circle. But the real tragedy isn't even the monthly overpayments. The tragedy is in the concept of equity. When you pay a mortgage, part of the money goes to the bank as interest. That's garbage. But part pays down the principal. That money returns to you. You are essentially moving it from your right pocket to your left. In 20 years, you have a house worth $500,000. You have an asset. When you pay rent, 100% of the money goes to a stranger. In 20 years, you have nothing, zero. A shoebox full of payment receipts. The rich get richer not because they are smarter, but because their housing works like a piggy bank. The poor stay poor because their housing works like a vacuum cleaner. You are financing your landlord's wealth. You are buying him a house. You are paying for his vacation. Your poverty is the fuel for his financial freedom. This is the brutal truth. You pay a mortgage either way. Whether you live in your own apartment or a rented one, a mortgage is being paid every month. It's just that if the apartment is yours, you pay for yourself. If it's rented, you pay for someone else. And who sets these draconian rules? Who decides that you are unreliable, even though you pay like clockwork? Let's peek inside the glass towers of those who hold your money, to the place where your poverty has been turned into the most profitable business product. Because banks love rich clients for prestige, but they make their real money on the poor. If you think the rental system is unfair, welcome to the bank. A place that is supposed to store money, but in reality engages in its redistribution. And I'm not talking about business loans. I'm talking about the most cynical redistribution of wealth in modern history, from the poor to the rich. The banking system works on the reverse Robin Hood principle. It takes from the poor to give to the wealthy. Don't believe me? Let's look at my account. I have premium status. The bank gives me free service, free travel insurance, concierge service, and cashback. Every time I spend money, the bank pays me. Why is the bank so kind to me? Because I have a large sum sitting in my account. The bank uses my money to issue loans and shares the profit with me. Now let's look at the account of a friend of mine who works as a nurse and raises 2 kids. She has $5 left on her card. She forgot about it. She was exhausted after a shift and just wanted to buy a coffee for $6. She taps her card at the terminal. Beep. Payment approved, but she only had $5. The balance went to -$1. What does the bank do? It doesn't decline the transaction. Oh no, that would be too humane. It processes the payment, drives her into the negative, and immediately charges an overdraft fee. $35. Think about it. She borrowed $1 from the bank for 1 second, and the bank charged her a 3,500% commission for this service. Now that cup of coffee cost her $41. That is the most expensive coffee in the world, more expensive than in the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton. And this is just the beginning. If she doesn't notice this today and buys a bagel tomorrow, the bank will deduct another $35. In 2 days, she can go $100 in the hole just by buying food. This isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. It is a business model. In the US, banks make over $30 billion a year just on overdraft and insufficient funds fees. $30 billion. That's more than the GDP of some countries. And do you know who pays this money? Not me, and not the millionaires on Wall Street. We have these fees turned off. 90% of these fees are paid by people whose average account balance does not exceed $350. These funds, fines for poverty, go straight to the bank's profit. And do you know what that profit is spent on? On my bonuses, on my cashback, on my free airport lounge access. When you see a rich guy skipping the line to the VIP lounge with his platinum card, know this. His ticket was paid for by a single mother who accidentally bought milk when she was 10 cents short on her card. You are literally sponsoring the luxury lives of those richer than you with your fines. This also applies to account maintenance fees. If you have less than $500 in your account, we will charge you $15 a month. Translation: you have so little money that we will take the last of it until you disappear. Banks suck resources out of you because you don't have any. But when the bank takes every last penny and you still need to somehow survive until payday, the real vultures step onto the stage. They don't wear suits. They wear bright neon signs and promise fast cash. And if the bank just slaps you in the face, these guys are ready to break your legs. When the bank refuses to help you because you are too poor, you look for other doors. And these doors are always open. They glow with neon lights on the streets and bright buttons on your smartphone. First come the kind helpers, apps with names like Split, Afterpay, or Buy Now, Pay Later. They look harmless. You want to buy sneakers for $100. The app says, hey, don't pay it all at once. Pay just $25 now, the rest later. It sounds like a life hack, like a smart financial maneuver. But this is a psychological trap designed by the best behavioral psychologists in Silicon Valley. These services sever the connection between the pain of paying and the pleasure of purchasing. When you pay cash, you feel the loss of money. When you pay later, your brain doesn't register the loss. As a result, you spend 20–30% more than planned. You accumulate small debts, $25 here, $15 in there, $40 here, and suddenly your future paycheck is already distributed before you even receive it. You have sold your future piece by piece, but this is still the mild version. When money is needed urgently, for medicine, for food, for repairing that broken car, people go to the real predators, to payday loan shops or microlenders. Here, the math turns into a horror movie. They tell you, take $100 now, pay back $115 in 2 weeks. You think, only $15 overpayment? No big deal. That's cheaper than a bank fee. This is a cognitive trap. In finance, everything is measured in annual percentage rate, APR. If you pay 15% for 2 weeks, then annualized, that amounts to almost 400% per year. 400%. If you invested money in Apple or Tesla stock and got 20% per year, you would be an investment genius. But here, they take 400% from you. No legal business in the world yields such returns, except for drug trafficking and issuing microloans to the poor. You don't take this money because life is good. You take it to plug a hole, but in 2 weeks, you need to pay back the debt, and there is still no money. What do? You take a new loan to pay off the old one, plus interest. The snowball turns into an avalanche. People spend years paying interest on a loan they took out to buy a microwave, and in the end, they pay the price of a used car. This is modern slavery. No chains, just promissory notes. The system sucks resources out of you from both sides, lowering your income and inflating your expenses through fees and interest. But there is another side effect of this process, the scariest one. When you live in this mode, juggling bills, choosing between food and bus fare, flinching at every call from an unknown number, something happens to your head. Have you noticed that when you have money problems, you start making stupid mistakes? You forget your keys, you fight with loved ones, you make bad decisions at work? You aren't going crazy. This is biology. Financial poverty causes physical damage to your cognitive abilities. We've broken down the math of the outside world. But now we need to look inside your skull. Because stress doesn't just ruin your mood, it literally makes you dumber. We have reached the heaviest part of our conversation. We discussed banks, cars, and supermarkets. But the poverty tax deals its main damage not to your wallet. It deals a blow to your brain. Have you ever noticed that when you have absolutely no money, you make the worst decisions of your life? You buy lottery tickets, you eat fast food, you smoke, you take a microloan knowing you can't pay it back. Society looks at this and says, well, of course he's poor. Look how stupid he is. He has no willpower. It's his own fault. I am here to tell you, that is a lie. Cause and effect are reversed. You aren't poor because you make bad decisions. You make bad decisions because poverty physically changes how your brain works. In psychology, this is called the mindset of scarcity. Imagine your brain is a computer. You have RAM, random access memory. You need it to work, to communicate with family, to plan for the future. When you are rich, your background processes are clean. Is the mortgage paid? Yes. Is there food in the fridge? Yes. Will the car break down? Doesn't matter, I'll fix it. Your entire intellect is free for creativity and strategy. Now, imagine the brain of a person who doesn't know how to pay rent next week. In his head, constantly, 24 hours a day, an emergency program is spinning. Where to get money? Where to get money? Where to get money? This process devours 80% of the RAM. The computer starts to freeze. This isn't a metaphor. Scientists from Princeton conducted a series of cruel but revealing experiments. They gave people logic and intelligence tasks. But before that, they asked them one question. One group was told, imagine your car broke down. Repairs cost $150. For most, this is unpleasant but not fatal. People solved the test normally. The second group was told, repairs cost $1,500. And here something terrible happened. Wealthy participants in the experiment didn't react at all. For them, $1,500 is just a number. Their IQ remained high. But low-income people went into a stupor. The mere thought of such an expense was enough to paralyze their cognitive abilities. Their IQ test results dropped instantly. The drop averaged 13 of 14 points. To give you the scale, this is the difference between average intelligence and borderline intellectual disability. It's the same effect as if you hadn't slept for 2 days straight, or as if you drank a bottle of vodka and sat down to solve algebra problems. Poverty makes you drunk without alcohol. The most convincing proof was obtained in India on farmers growing sugarcane. These people receive money once a year, after the harvest. Scientists tested the same farmers twice. The first time, before the harvest, when they were poor and in debt. The second time, after the harvest, when they were rich. These were the same people, the same genes, the same education. But the rich farmers solved problems 25% better than they did themselves when in a state of poverty. This explains everything. This explains tunnel vision. When you are stressed, you only see the problem right in front of your nose. You cannot look at perspective. If a tiger is chasing you, you don't think about how to learn a foreign language in 5 years. You think about how not to die right now. A payday loan is a way to escape the tiger today, even if it means 2 tigers will eat you tomorrow. You take this loan not because you are stupid, but because your brain is in survival mode. So, please, stop blaming yourself for past mistakes. Under those conditions, under that pressure, your brain did the only thing it could. It tried to survive at any cost. But now, you know the truth. You know the system is rigged. You know your own brain sabotages you under stress pressure. The question is, how to turn off that siren in your head, how to free up RAM to start making the right decisions. There is only one mathematical way out of this labyrinth. It isn't fast, it is boring, but it works flawlessly. We need to create what engineers call redundancy and financiers call the buffer. We have reached the moment of truth. We saw how the system breaks you over its knee. Boots, cars, rent, banks, stress, all of this is gravity pulling you down. How to break this circle? How to stop paying the poverty tax? The answer lies in physics. In astronautics, there's a concept called escape velocity. This is the speed a rocket needs to develop to overcome Earth's gravity and enter orbit. If there isn't enough speed, the rocket might fly up for a while, but gravity will inevitably pull it back, and it will crash. This is exactly what happens to most people trying to get out of debt. You save, you pay off a loan, but an emergency happens, the car breaks down, and you fall back taking a new loan. You need fuel to overcome the pull. In finance, this fuel is called the buffer. Forget the word savings. Savings are for old age, for vacation, for a house. That's for the rich. You need an operational buffer. This is a layer of air between your face and the asphalt. Your first and only goal right now is not to pay off the mortgage, not to buy stocks. Your goal is to gather $1,000, or an amount equal to 2 weeks of your life, and put it in a separate account that you don't have quick access to with a card. Why exactly this? What I'm about to say contradicts the advice of many financial gurus. They scream, "Pay off debts, interest is eating you alive." Yes, mathematically they are right, but behaviorally they are wrong. Look, let's say you have an extra $500 and you have credit card debt. You take that $500 and send it to the debt. Good job. You lowered the principal, but now you have zero in your account. 3 days later, you chip a tooth. The pain is hellish. Treatment costs $500. You have no money. You just gave it to the bank. What do? You whip out the credit card again or go to a microlender. You return to the starting point, only now you are also stressed, and the bank charged you a cash advance fee. Gravity 1. Now, the scenario with the buffer. You have $500. You do not pay off the debt. You put it in the buffer. Yes, interest is ticking on the loan. Let it tick. That is the price of insurance. You chip a tooth. You take money from the buffer. You fix the tooth. Result, the debt didn't grow. No new predatory loans. You solve the problem with your own money. For the first time in 10 years, you didn't fall. Mathematically, this idle $1,000 brings you more income than the best stocks on the market. If it saves you from one microloan at 400% APR, that means its return was 400%. But most importantly, the buffer heals your brain. As soon as you have this cushion, the siren in your head quiets down. What if stops causing panic? RAM is freed up. You start seeing opportunities you didn't notice before due to tunnel vision. You can afford to look for a job for a week longer to find an option with a higher salary. You can say no to bad conditions. Money isn't just paper. Money is the no you can say to circumstances. This is the first stage of the rocket. Gathering a buffer is hard. You'll have to sell something unnecessary, take a side gig, temporarily cut everything to the minimum, but you only need to do it once. Once the buffer is created, you move from the victim category to the player category. The rules of the game change in your favor. Gravity weakens, and when you reach orbit, when you stop paying double the price for existence, you will see the world with completely different eyes. Because now you know the rules. And the time has come for the last step. The time has come to stop being a pawn. We started this conversation with a casino metaphor. I told you the game is rigged, that you pay to enter, to leave, and for every step inside. Now, an hour later, you see the mechanics of this deception. You see the invisible strings tugging at your wallet. Poverty is not a lack of character. Poverty is a mathematical anomaly. A self-sustaining cycle where the lack of money is the cause of losing even more money. It is a funnel. And to get out of it, you don't need willpower, you need physics. They lied to you. They told you wealth is the result of denying yourself small joys. Wealth is the result of lowering the cost of your life. Wealth comes when you stop paying the poverty tax, when you buy quality boots that last for years, when you buy insurance so that one accident doesn't destroy your life, when you have a buffer that allows you to tell payday loans and bank fees to go to hell. Now you have a map of the minefield. The system counts on your blindness. It counts on you being too tired, too scared, and too ashamed to crunch the numbers. But today, we turned on the lights in this dark room. Your task for tomorrow is simple. Don't try to become a millionaire in a week. Your task is to create a buffer. Your task is to buy a wholesale pack of Vimes boots. It won't be easy. The system will resist. Gravity will pull back. But now you know that it is just a formula, and any formula can be solved.